We're now jumping into what a lot of people claim to be the best expansion that ever was, the Burning Crusade. There's a lot going on here, especially with Illidan and the secrets he kept deep within the Black Temple. If this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. My name is Kael'thas, and I'm in the middle of abridging the World of Warcraft Chronicle series. That means I'm taking the lore contained within these books and condensing it even more than it already is. I'm not diving into the deep details or the novels that have more information, just sticking to what's written in the books. So again, apart from what you read in the title of the video or saw in the thumbnail, I'll be sharing other sections of lore that may not be related to what grabbed your attention in the first place. In essence, I'm telling the story in order as the books tell it. Currently, we're on volume 3, but if you want to start from the beginning, then I suggest clicking the link in the tab up above or in the description down below. That will lead you to a video that contains all 10 episodes covering the lore in volume 1. But if you're already caught up with the story, then let's continue our journey into the tales of Azeroth. Illidan's failed campaign against the Lich King had left him wounded, humiliated, and stripped of Kil'jaeden's patience, but he no longer needed the Demon Lord's approval. The pretense of serving the Legion was over, and his true war had begun. Anticipating a retaliatory strike from Kil'jaeden, Illidan fortified his defenses on Outland and set about rebuilding his army by transferring Magtheridon to Hellfire Citadel, where his blood was siphoned and used to transform hundreds of orcs into savage, battle-crazed soldiers. As his forces grew, so did the need to feed them. Outland was a barren wasteland with little food or water. So Illidan dispatched Lady Vash and her Naga to Zangarmarsh, one of the few regions still rich in resources. Zangarmarsh had once been an enormous sea, now reduced by Draenor's destruction to a swampy maze of islands and waterways teeming with diverse life, including Draenei and their mutated broken cousins. The Naga were well suited to the watery terrain and quickly spread across the marsh, while the Draenei managed to defend themselves from within their stronghold of Tel'Rador. The isolated broken tribes had no such protection. Lady Vash hunted them down and enslaved many of them to build Coilfang Reservoir, a massive fortress at the heart of Zangarmarsh, housing machinery designed to drain the swamp's water for Illidan's army. The draining devastated Zangarmarsh's ecosystem, killing off creatures like the fungal giants, but Lady Vash showed no concern for the consequences. The reservoir served its purpose. It kept Illidan's forces alive and operational. From the Black Temple, Illidan oversaw his growing dominion. Most of Outland had effectively fallen under his sphere of influence, and with his defenses secured, he turned his attention to forging a new kind of weapon against the Legion. He envisioned warriors made in his own image, elves empowered by demonic energy, unified by a hunger for vengeance, and willing to sacrifice everything to destroy the Legion. He would call them Demon Hunters. Illidan recruited his demon hunters from blood elves and night elves of all backgrounds, warriors, artisans, parents, united by one thing. They had all lost someone to the Legion and burned with a need for vengeance. He trained them in secret within the Black Temple, keeping their existence hidden even from Kael'thas, whose only knowledge of them came through dark, barely believable rumors. The truth behind those rumors was harrowing. Illidan forced each recruit to consume demon flesh and bind their spirit with that of the demon, granting them tremendous power and visions of the Legion's true nature, so terrifying that the elves gorged out their own eyes in response. The infusion of fell energy transformed them physically, Horns and wings emerged, much like Illidan's own, and left each of them in a permanent internal struggle against the demonic spirit now dwelling within them. Few survived the training. Most died or were driven mad. Those who emerged as demon hunters were fundamentally and irreversibly changed. Illidan led his new demon hunters through Outland's remaining portals, storming into Legion-controlled worlds and cutting down demons to satisfy their hunger for vengeance. But for Illidan, these strikes were only a prelude. His true goal was the destruction of the Legion's worlds, starting with Argus, the Legion's seat of power and home to Kil'jaeden himself. Any demon slain there would be permanently destroyed. Illidan had studied how Ner'zhul's reckless magic had torn Draenor apart, and he intended to do the same to Argus. But to find Argus, he would need to look elsewhere first. His target was Nathraza, homeworld of the Dreadlords and a vault of forbidden Legion knowledge. He began preparing his assault. Kil'jaeden had underestimated Illidan. What he had once dismissed as a minor nuisance had become a Fel-empowered army capable of striking at Legion-controlled worlds. Now, Kil'jaeden understood Illidan's true goal, the destruction of the Legion itself, possibly including an assault on Argus. He decided to meet the threat head-on, dispatching a Legion army to Outland under the Doomguard High Lord Krull. Progress was slow. Illidan had closed many of Outland's portals, and it would take months for Krull to establish a foothold. Unwilling to wait for Krull to be ready, Kil'jaeden looked for another weapon, in Illidan's greatest weakness. Illidan's embrace of fel magic and demonic power had already alienated the peoples of Azeroth, who saw no distinction between him and the Legion. If the Horde and Alliance discovered what he had built on Outland, they would move against him. All they needed was a push. Kil'jaeden saw an additional opportunity in his plan. If he could manipulate the Horde and Alliance into pouring their forces into Outland, it would leave Azeroth itself exposed to a Legion invasion on a second front, one that Kil'jaeden would lead personally. The failures of the Lich King and Archimonde had convinced Kil'jaeden that he could not trust anyone else to secure Azeroth. But he needed a powerful gateway into the world. The Second Will of Eternity at Hyjal, the Legion's target during the Third War, was now too closely watched by the Night Elves. He needed another option. That option was the Sunwell. Though Kael'thas and the Blood Elves had destroyed the fount and scattered its energy, Kil'jaeden had discovered a way to restore it. His spies, disguised as Blood Elves and embedded within Kael'thas' inner circle, had uncovered the existence of Anvina Teague, an avatar containing the Sunwell's lost power. She was the key to transforming the Sunwell into a gateway for the Legion, but Kil'jaeden's agents lacked the knowledge to activate the Sunwell using Anvina. Someone who knew the fount intimately and who knew how to bypass Kael'thas' defenses was needed. That someone was Kael'thas Sunstrider. Kil'jaeden bided his time, watching Kael'thas from a distance and waiting for the right moment to bring him to the Legion's side. With Anvina hidden in Kael'thas, Kael'thas within reach, and the Horde and Alliance on the verge of being drawn into Outland, Kil'jaeden's plan was taking shape. A two-pronged assault designed to destroy Illidan and claim Azeroth for the Legion simultaneously. Though Illidan had taught Kael'thas and the Blood Elves to siphon magic from artifacts, creatures, and their surroundings, it was never enough to truly satisfy their craving. Desperate for a more potent source, Kael'thas turned his attention to fel magic. Dangerous, but he had watched the demon hunters wield it without falling to the Legion, and he believed he could do the same. Illidan agreed to teach him. Kael'thas started carefully, drawing only small amounts of the dark energy, but he quickly became hopelessly addicted. The fell magic eroded his mind, body, and soul, and drove a wedge between him and his own people. He grew secretly paranoid, convinced they saw him as a failure. The painful truth was that his journey to Outland had done nothing to help the Blood Elves. It had only deepened their suffering. The right thing to do would have been to go home, but pride and shame made that impossible. His inability to admit defeat became the force that sealed his fate. His deteriorating mental state made him volatile and unpredictable, swinging without warning between warmth and sudden fury. Kil'jaeden watched this unraveling carefully, knowing the prince would not be easy to manipulate. Kael'thas was fully aware of the Legion's role in the destruction of Kael'thas and the corruption of the Sunwell. The Demon Lord made his move carefully. He said nothing of Envina or his plans for Azeroth, focusing entirely on Illidan and the promise of greater power. He whispered to Kael'thas that Illidan had been withholding the true techniques of fell magic, the same refined methods that made the demon hunters so formidable, because he considered Kael'thas and his people unworthy tools to be spent in his war, nothing more. Kil'jaeden offered to reveal the full secrets of fell magic in exchange for Kael'thas abandoning Illidan's side. Kael'thas refused, but the words had been planted. In the days that followed, Kil'jaeden's whispers festered in the prince's fractured mind, quietly corroding whatever trust remained between him and Illidan's Stormrage. Before we continue, I'd like to mention that if you're enjoying this content, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you feel inclined to support the work that I'm doing, you can check out my membership options here on YouTube or on Patreon. I'm really grateful for all of those who have supported this massive project that I've been working on for quite some time now, and I do offer early access to all those people who have signed up. So if you're interested, check out the links down below, and let's get back to the story. The Legion's escalating presence on Outland deeply alarmed Velen, leader of the Draenei, who had spent over a decade keeping his scattered people hidden and safe. He feared the demons would eventually find them and finish the extermination they had started long ago. Throughout all of it, Velen had never wavered in his faith, praying daily to the Naaru for guidance. And as the Legion's new invasion began, those prayers grew more urgent. He was not alone in reaching out. Archmage Khadgar, who had remained on Outland since the destruction of the Dark Portal alongside the Sons of Lothar, had spent years using his magic to search the Great Dark Beyond for allies. Together, his efforts and Velen's prayers reached the Naaru of the Army of the Light, a force waging war against the Legion on Argus itself. The Naaru were eager to help, but could not spare soldiers from their own ceaseless battles. Instead, 3 Naaru, Adal, Muru, and Oros, volunteered to go to Outland personally. Aboard the dimensional fortress Tempest Keep, they traveled through the stars and arrived in the Netherstorm, a region where reality was warped by the constant encroachment of the twisting Nether. Dangerous, but easy for the Naaru to reach. Adal surveyed Outland and sensed the scattered Draenei enclaves and remnants of the Son of Lothar, divided peoples who all shared the same enemy. The Naaru sought a place to unite them and found it in Shattrath City, where a Draenei priestly order called the Aldor had taken up residence in the ruins and continued their worship of the Holy Light. Adal transported itself to Shattrath, leaving Muru and Oros behind to watch over Tempest Keep. The Aldor welcomed the Naaru with open arms and pledged their full devotion. Word of Adal's arrival spread, and slowly, others made their way to the city from across Outland's wastelands. Velen arrived cautiously, fearing a Legion trap, and was overjoyed to discover his prayers had truly been answered. Khadgar and the Sons of Lothar also came, and though the Draenei were initially wary of the outsiders, Adal's calming presence brought them together. The Naru's message was simple: divided, they would fall. United, they had a chance. It was a call that all gathered in Shattrath were ready to hear. Under Adal's guidance, the Draenei and Alliance forces began rebuilding Shattrath City as a symbol of hope, a beacon that would one day shine across all of Outland. Illidan viewed the Naru's arrival in Shattrath as a potential threat to his grip on Outland. If left unchecked, they would rally enough strength to move against his forces. He decided to strike while the city was still vulnerable, ordering Kael'thas to send the Blood Elves to take it by force. When Kael'thas requested that the Demon Hunters join the assault, Illidan refused without explanation, which deepened the princess's growing resentment. Kael'thas entrusted the attack to a gifted magister named Vorenthal, who led the Blood Elf army towards Shattrath, confident of victory. But the assault never happened. En route, Vorenthal experienced a vision of the future, a time when the Blood Elves would be free of addiction and despair, with a Naru's holy light washing over Kael'thas and healing their suffering at its source. The vision changed everything. Vorenthal shared it with his soldiers, and they were convinced. Desperate for any hope after so much hardship, the Blood Elves sheathed their weapons and pledged themselves to Adal upon reaching Shattrath. These converts became known as the Scryers. Vorenthal sent word to Kael'thas urging him to join them. He received no reply. Kael'thas was furious, publicly branding the defection as treason, privately feeling it as another confirmation of his own failure. He demanded that Illidan retaliate against the Naru, but Illidan, consumed with his demon hunters, ignored the matter entirely. To Kael'thas, this was proof of what Kil'jaeden had told him. Illidan did not value him or his people. His faith in Illidan shattered. Kael'thas turned to Kil'jaeden as a new benefactor. Some part of him recognized the danger in trusting the Legion, the same force that had destroyed his homeland, but his addiction to fell magic overwhelmed his better judgment. The promise of greater knowledge about wielding that energy swept away every other consideration. With little hesitation, Kael'thas forged a pact with Kil'jaeden and abandoned Illidan's Stormrage. In exchange, the Demon Lord gave the prince exactly what he craved most: deeper knowledge of fell magic and how to wield it. While Illidan was absorbed in training his demon hunters, Kael'thas quietly departed the Black Temple with most of his followers, promising to return but never intending to. He made his way to the Netherstorm, a remote corner of Outland where he had previously attempted to harness the region's chaotic energies without success. Tempest Keep's arrival changed everything. Its advanced technology offered him a new means to capture and feed on that power. Kael'thas led a small army of Blood Elves in an assault on Tempest Keep, using their command of fell energy to overwhelm its defenses. The Naru Oros managed to seal itself within a satellite structure called the Exodar, but Muru was not so fortunate. It fell under the Blood Elves' control. Despite his allegiance to Kil'jaeden, Kael'thas still wanted to help his people. He believed Muru's power could ease the Blood Elves' magical withdrawal and sent the Naru to Kael'thas. He also dispatched followers to teach the Blood Elves how to siphon magic from creatures and artifacts. Unknown to Kael'thas, a closely guarded secret existed within Kael'thas. Lothamar Theron, the kingdom's regent lord, had kept the existence of Anvina Teague hidden from the prince, fearing that Kael'thas's desperation might lead him to act recklessly with the Sunwell's avatar. Over time, Lothamar reconsidered his secrecy and decided Kael'thas needed to know, but the messengers he sent were intercepted and eliminated by Kil'jaeden's agents. The Demon Lord needed Kael'thas desperate and uncertain, not hopeful. Back in Kael'thas, the Blood Elves had mixed feelings about Muru. Lor'themar and many others were deeply uncomfortable with the idea of draining a being of holy light. Others had no such reservations and spent months experimenting on the Naru until they found a way to force out its holy energies and wield the light themselves. Word of this discovery spread to the kingdom's former priests, including Lady Liadrin. When the Scourge had destroyed Kael'thas, Liadrin had felt completely abandoned by the light and had lost her ability to call upon it. Muru offered her a new path. Liadrin was the first to draw on Muru's energies, and those who followed her formed a new order of Blood Elf paladins known as the Blood Knights. Meanwhile, back on Outland, Illidan eventually realized that Kael'thas had no intention of returning to the Black Temple. The betrayal confirmed what many around him had feared. His inability to hold his alliances together was becoming a critical weakness in his war against the Legion. With Kael'thas now secretly in Kil'jaeden's service and Muru in Kael'thas, the Demon Lord's two-pronged plan was advancing. Azeroth was being quietly positioned for invasion while Outland remained a battleground. Kael'thas himself had become a tool of the Legion, though some small part of him still clung to the belief that he was acting for his people's survival. That belief would prove harder and harder to sustain as the Demon Lord's grip on him tightened. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the work that I'm doing, please check out my YouTube, Patreon, or Twitch memberships. And a big shout out to all the names on the screen here. You mean so much to me. Thank you so much for your help. And with that, I'll see you guys next time on the Tales of Azeroth.